And just the last bit, as you see, he has been injured, and it makes us the great gift of being here, despite his injuries. So thank you for being here.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So I'm Alexis Carrion. I'm working for BNP Paribas CIB, which is the corporate and institutional banking part of the BNP Paribas group. And I'm the global head of data centers, meaning that I'm responsible for all data centers worldwide that we are actually operating and in which we host our IT systems. We deployed DLC for a few years now, so I'm going to give you a bit of information of the issue we met when we triggered those initiatives and all the recs that we have made till yet. I'll be able to share it with you because there are some things that are sometimes unpredictable that could happen, and this may help, I hope, if you plan to deploy DLC systems in your own premises. Okay, so I'm going to speak about of the business who's working HPC at BNP Paribas. Then I'm going to explain what are the drivers which drove our transformation to DLC. Then I will make a small introduction to DLC for dummies, let's say. And then I speak about the recs and the issue we faced when we implemented those solutions. So, it's a bit dense. So, a bit of context. We have an entity at BNP Paribas which is called Global Markets. Basically, it's providing accesses to all markets and all IT systems for all stock exchanges worldwide, and we are selling products based on those markets. They could be derivatives, they could be futures, options, etc. And we need to access all those markets, and we need to make some prices calculation covering the risk for all the companies that are actually looking for those services. I take a simple example. When you buy a plane ticket today, you give some money to your aircraft company, your airline, and the airline, when it receives the amount of your tickets, doesn't know how much will cost actually the oil to make the plane flight. They ask then to many banks to price to ensure the price of the oil at the time of the ticket selling. So when you buy a ticket now, all banks are making a huge computation with statistics, risks, and everything to estimate the risk of the variability on the oil price in 6 months from now or in 1 year from now. And we sell some insurance on the price variation. In case the oil is increasing, we cover the increase. And in case it's decreasing, they lost the money they gave us to cover the price. So they hedge the risk thanks to banking systems. That's what we actually do in many of our systems. And most of our services are based on statistics and risk calculations. So to execute those mathematical models and to anticipate those risks, we are relying on a supercomputer, which is spread across several data centers. And we are running today 260,000 cores, physical cores, who are answering to the application's requests in real time. So we have different requests. Some, when we answer to pricing requests, we need to do it in a few seconds. Otherwise, it's too late and our clients don't take our offers and the deals are lost. Sometimes some traders are making some bigger pricing and offers that are less real-time offers. So they need to get answers in a few minutes. And overnight, we are making the risk calculation. We do have some regulatory requirements. and we use also the capacity overnight to make some calculation that we need to provide to all regulators every morning. So that's why we need actually an HPC grid. And I'm going to explain to you then how we made to optimize this HPC grid. I hope it's quite clear. I took an example, so okay. As we are a bank, we are a bit greedy, and we are looking for efficiency everywhere we can. And as you can imagine, to operate so many computers, so many CPUs, it consumes a lot of power. And the way to decrease those costs is quite simple: densification, densification, densification. So we do have several sites today which are actually operating all together. They are accessed from our applications based in our on-premises data centers, mostly in London and Paris. And we do have legacy data centers which are in blue, data center BNP PDC. We do have racks between 3 and 8 kilowatts per racks. They are applicative racks. We used them as HPC racks also, so it's a bit inefficient in terms of housing. We do have also an on-premise data center in London where we are able to reach 10 kilowatts per racks, but for HPC now it's a bit low. In Iceland, we opened a data center 6 years ago, to host our HPC, because there the climate is cold, so you don't need active cooling, decreasing drastically the PUE, even if it's air cooling. And power is really, really cheap. It's 4 times cheaper than it is in France. So we opened the first offshore site in Iceland. And then we opened a new site in Nanterre, starting to increase the density, reaching 22 kilowatts per racks. And we first met DLC systems there. We bought a fully integrated solution, including hardware, supply, and housing. And since we discovered the actual efficiency of the power consumption of DLC, we decided to move to full DLC for HPC right after Nanterre. And now we are trying to shift to full DLC for everything else in all other data centers, including low-density data centers. We have just opened a Norway data center a few months ago with 60 kilowatts per racks. We are planning to open one in Paris at 90 kilowatts per racks by this summer. And we are going to open a new one by end of this year with 100 kilowatts per rack. So it's obviously increasing a lot. And the denser, the cheaper, as you may know. We have several drivers for that. We move to countries where the power is cheap, where it's green, where they are able to valorize the fatal heat. We are looking for obviously cold climate, liquid cooling availability, and ultra high density availability. Nordic countries are very good at this today. They do have all the elements, and the Nordic governments are pushing the data center housing services with laws and tax reduction to all the suppliers who are installing data centers in those countries, because they have a lot of power to sell. So it's a win-win situation. In our strategy, we multiply the number of sites. That way, whenever we lose one of them, it's less impacting. We want to reach at least 10 distinct sites. And we are also relying on Microsoft Azure on-demand HPC, so that in case we lose one site, we're able to restart all the workloads in the cloud. We also don't go directly in a new site. We rely on the refresh process. I'll explain you afterwards how we proceed with that, knowing that increasing efficiency a lot allows to have a free refresh. We don't add additional capex or additional financial effort to refresh our hardware. reducing our power consumption makes our refresh completely free and even profitable at the end. We have also moved to AMD CPUs because the cores are consuming much less power than Intel CPUs yet. So we rely on those CPU. We don't do HPC based on GPUs yet. And the densification of the cores per CPU allows us also to buy less machine and to increase the power density. Yes? Okay. Sorry. So I made a bit of estimates. I removed the scales because it's a bit of confidential for us, but it gives basically how we proceeded for those calculations. So the graph on the left, we are moving to data center which have definitely PUE below 1.2 without water consumption. So WUE at 0. On the left, the two biggest columns are representing the cost for 60,000 cores that are hosted in our on-premises in London and in Paris. Then you have Nanterre, then Iceland, Sweden, and Norway. So this shows that we have been able to decrease the overall TCO on a 5 years basis by 3 or 4. And doing that, every time we open a new site and we remove part of the biggest columns on the left, it's completely auto-funded. On the right, in purple, on the left graph, you have the CO2 tons per year that are produced in terms of power consumption. As it's also an objective of BNP Paribas to be carbon neutral on its HPC grid, we are also following up the CO2 emissions. Yes? No? Okay. The graph on the right, so from the blue to the top, it's the Nordic sites, and the brown and orange parts are for France and UK sites. This is the number of cores that we have actually delivered in our HPC grid. So we have already met our goals in 2025. I removed all the parallel runs. And you have also the power cost in purple and the power consumption in blue. So the size of the grid almost doubled in 5 years in a 5-year scale. And we decreased the power cost by 2. So we have a ratio of 4 between the time we started and the time and today. So we have used a simple calculations. We decreased the PUE a lot, moving from UK and France to the Nordics and DLC systems. We won more or less 30% in terms of power cost. Then the power consumptions reduced a lot thanks to new AMD generation cores. We improved the computation capabilities per core because the last cores are much more powerful in terms of pure computation than the old ones that we are replacing. We are shifting to a cheaper kilowatt hour. And we also do have a cheaper housing. And all those factors are multiplying each other, reaching the gain by 4 compared to existing classical on-premises air-cooled systems. Okay, so DLC. Maybe I will do overkill there because it's quite simple in principle, so I will go fast. Basically, you have a CDU, which is a heat exchanger, as you may have in nuclear power plants, for instance. You have a circle on the left, which is taking the calories outside of the facility. A circuit on the right, which is bringing the liquid into the racks and into the servers. There are different systems with CDUs which are outside of the racks, which are called end of row, And there are also small CDUs that you can put and plug in each rack. And each CDU is then delivering the cold water and the cold liquid to the servers that are racked in the rack. So the end-of-row CDUs can reach 1.2 megawatt each. So we usually put 2 of them to have redundancy, but all those systems have an inner redundancy. They have 2 pumps, they have 2 everything. Everything is doubled. So it's a pure decision for BNP Paribas to put 2 of them because may we lose 1 CDU, we lose the whole cage. And if we lose the whole cage, it will cost much more than a CDU. So we decided to put 2 of them. A CDU, it's basically pipes and pumps, so it's quite cheap. So when you compare the cost of the CDU and the cost of the impact, you may choose to put 2 of them. That's what we did. The liquid system is removing 70 to 80% of the heat from the servers, which means that you need to have a residual system to cool with air the RAM and the different devices on the motherboard of the servers. And there are also ways to do that with a liquid cool door. That's what we did actually in Norway. The average DLC PU is between 1.07 and 1.15. The 1.15 is what we do have contractually with our suppliers, which means that they have much less in reality. They agreed to cap the PUE at 1.15. So it's not something that is not actually reachable. It's not a dream. We do have this 1.15 in our contract. So you can aim at maximum 1.15. That's what we actually do in our business plans. As a comparison, we do have 1.5 to 1.8 between for our air cooling facilities. And we don't use adiabatic systems. And DLC is able to cool up to 200 kilowatts per rack. It's also the maximum that we saw in one of our DLC facilities. The capability of the supplier to cool can reach 200 kilowatts per racks. The servers are also provided by standard server suppliers, so I won't name them, but you know perfectly them. They do have a DLC section. Most of their machines are available in DLC, natively DLC. And we also consider that since we are using DLC, we are beginning to have a vision on the decrease of the outage on the servers. It means that DLC potentially decreases the number of hardware failures because the hardware is more properly cooled and potentially more robust to heat issues. Those are some pictures from our liquid cool system recently installed in Norway. So we do have a PUE capped at 1.15. Our power cost is 0.06 euro per kilowatt hour. So it's around 0.18, I think, in France today, depending on the contract you have. We have a power density to 60 kilowatt per racks. As we didn't pay for space, we limited the density to the number of ports that we have and the number of available ports also on the manifolds, which are installed on the back of the racks. You can see the piping system on the back. So it's really very basic. Piping, dropless connectors, and just connected to the data center cooling system. And we put also some rear doors because in the room that has been delivered for us, they do not have air cooling capacity. So the rear doors are removing the remaining calories. And you can see on the right our 2 CDUs. We chose some 2 Cool IT CDUs with 700 kilowatts each. A bit of Rex. So power efficiency. the figures that are announced are absolutely realistic. It's something that we reached in real life. The liquid cooling is very efficient for stability in terms of temperature inside the servers. So that's what I said. It seems that we have less outages. We may not have enough return on experience yet, but the current figures are showing that it's improving at least. It removes between 70 and 80% of fatal heat from the servers, but in some systems it could reach 95%. Some hardware suppliers are able to provide such machines. They are more complex, they are more expensive, and it may not make sense to put the additional euros to get those few 10 or those few 30% of fatal heat removal. We can use liquid cooled doors to remove the remaining air cooling system if you don't have one already. The DLC RAM cooling doesn't provide much efficiency. It's a few percent on the overall heat produced by the server. We do have now IT rooms that are much more quiet than what we used to have in air cooling systems. And the business case is completely auto-funded based on a 5 years business case on a TCO approach. So we are increasing a bit the cost of housing, but decreasing a lot the power consumption. So we do have a business case. We have an ROI which have reached 3 years in the Nordics and 5 years today when we refresh in situ. The secondary loop, we faced some issues with pure water. With pure water-based systems. We had some algae development in the circuit. Our servers have been impacted, etc. So we are now trying to shift to coolant systems which are much more robust to maintenance issues. It's almost impossible to recover from a major water quality imbalance. Once it happens, it's too late. If you did, it's like a swimming pool actually. If the swimming pool is green, it's over. You have to empty it and refill it completely. And in a DLC system, it's even not possible. So if you go to pure water-based systems, you have to be perfectly aware that the maintenance is key in the success of the system, and it should be absolutely rigorous. We use coolant systems. We know that we lose 3% more or less of efficiency, of power efficiency. But as they are more robust, we decided to move to that. It's a bit of a question of reliability of your supplier and how you manage the maintenance if you do it yourself. And the CDU also must be monitored as part of critical infrastructure. A failure on the CDU is like a failure on the cooling system, so you lose everything if you lose your CDU. So it's better to include the monitoring as a standard critical element of the data center facility. In terms of warranty maintenance, we at BNP Paribas had some discussions with our suppliers because we used CoolIT cooling systems. We used servers that were provided by another supplier. And may one server leak on other servers, you never know if it's a problem of the DLC circuit or a server problem. So both suppliers could consider the other responsible for the issue. So we decided to go for fully integrated system, and we pay the DLC circuit and the servers to the same supplier. Some of them are doing it, and we are moving to that yet. The secondary liquid cooling circuit also, as I said, need a regular maintenance. There should be some top-up of liquid into the circuit. There are some small elements to do, so a few hours per month, let's say. But despite in the contract with the DLC system, it's written that the maintenance is taken care of, etc. It's not. So you need to either include some smart hands into your data center contracts to deal with this additional activity, or ask your DLC circuit supplier to include it and to write it that they are going to take to carry the cost linked to the maintenance in the data center. Whenever you buy a DLC system, there is part of the service, of the installation services, which are providing training to the data center teams. So it's quite a good thing, but same, it has a cost because it takes time to the people in the data center, and the data center housing services supplier invoiced us for the training the DLC team gave them. And the maintenance, when you buy a DLC system, the CDU maintenance duration is 5 years. We didn't discuss about the beyond 5 years option because we didn't reach it yet. We started 3 years ago. There are some companies that are proposing some maintenance on the CDUs. We are not there yet, but there may be a problematic to address. And finally, the data center housing services don't really like that you connect your own CDU to their system, obviously. So what they are beginning to propose, and I'm speaking about the big ones, Equinix, Digital Realty, etc., they are pushing us to put a CDU in between the two infrastructures. So they provide one CDU, and we connect our CDUs after theirs. We lose 5% of efficiency, but we do have a clear demarcation line. But it means that you have 3 circuits connected by CDUs together. And finally, the DLC servers, we have them at a very, very similar price as air-cooled systems. So it's not a question of additional cost or anything whenever you decide to go to a DLC server or to air-cooled servers. A few success factors. So you have to rely on DLC leading experts. We face some issues based on probably newbies in the place, and they have set up a DLC system without following advices from the experts. Some elements are really strange when you look at a DLC system and are counterintuitive. So you need to follow the requirements from the DLC system providers. We use Cool IT, but any of them have similar constraints, and you need to strictly follow them. Don't trust your suppliers, obviously. Everybody says they are DLC experts. In the principle, it's very simple, but it's not that simple. It's stupid to tell, but many people consider, and the people who are selling the housing services consider that it's just simple piping. It's not. There are differences in flows, in pressure. There are plenty of small things that need to be set up at the beginning, and it's not something that should be negligible. You should include the CDU and the overall DLC infrastructure system in the monitoring of your data center and your IT system. So either you take it under your responsibility or you delegate it to your data center service supplier. But it's something that is key in the success. It's a very important brick in the chain of cooling systems. If you lose your cooling, you lose your data center. Whether it's DLC or air cooling, it's the same impact. We think that you shouldn't mix different hardware suppliers in the same rack connected to the same CDU. We had some issues in a data center that we have in Sweden. We wanted to increase the capacity of the hardware that were present in the data center, and the fact that 2 servers are connected to the same loop, if they are provided by 2 different suppliers, there are responsibility issues whenever there is a problem and you lose the warranty of both servers. So try to have consistent racks with the same servers connected to the same CDU and different circuits to different suppliers. Again, it's a question of demarcation line for the responsibility between the different suppliers. And also, the last one, do not over DLC since day one. It doesn't make sense to push DLC for DLC. We go progressively to DLC systems. We use the refresh process, which is basically a quite good process. We are replacing 20% of the hardware, I mean, maybe 15 or 10% of the hardware everywhere. And we progressively shift to DLC, but we are targeting hardware that makes sense. So big ESX, HPC, obviously. We are not going to DLCify network devices or small bare metal hardware that we have that consume 200 watts on the side. But it's something which is moving quite fast, and all the suppliers now do have in their high-end segment. They do have DLCs. They do have DLC systems. So we are starting to look at it very carefully, because we believe that it's something that will allow us to have a proper return on investment in terms of power. And I'm done. Sorry. Yes?
Hi, Alexis, thank you so much for this. It's great that you are, let's say, implementing DLC. I have a question for you in terms of how do you see the trend in more dense equipment moving forward, and where are going to be your roadmap and expectations about doing this?
Sorry, the trend in what?
In the trend in more dense equipment, denser equipment, and how do you see that happening, and how are your plans about implementing DLC for this kind of equipment?
Densification is the key in the return on investment of the hardware. So we are at BNP Paribas pushing the densification at the maximum. We have our platform teams there that are thinking on using the HPC model to get rid of the bare metal as a service that we provide to our internal clients. And doing that, it will allow also to pull all the remaining small parts that we don't expect to be densifiable. And definitely, it's something that we moving forward, and we expect it to be the next trend in hardware in general. AMD is providing bigger and bigger CPUs. We install machines with 384 cores each, so it's beginning to be insane in terms of density. I think maybe by the end of this year or maybe next year, they will reach 512 cores. So we are we're following the trend, obviously, and to follow this trend, liquid cooling is absolutely mandatory, I believe. So that's the reason why we have launched several projects to deploy liquid cooling in our on-premises data centers. And worldwide, whenever we launch a new RFP, we request the suppliers to be able to install some liquid cooling infrastructure. That said, we are opening a data center in Paris. Opening means BNP is opening a cage. We are opening it at Equinix in PA10. Maybe you know this site. It's a huge site. We are the first client which is deploying a DLC infrastructure. The first. So it's happening because they have made their data center completely compliant to DLC systems. So it's happening. Densification is on its way, I guess, and we are moving forward to ultra high density for HPC, and we expect HPC to pull the rest of our IT systems. whenever we can, because we do have insane improvement in terms of efficiency.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aurélien, could you again? How do you see the DLC technology become some standard at some point? It's a standard in the technology itself, but not in the implementation it has for every single vendor, because the industry has the habit to build its own standard. You know, the NIH syndrome, it's all there in the hardware industry. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. And how are we going to move towards something standardized and interoperable at some point?
The decision that we made with DLC was based on two factors. First one was the money, because we saved a lot of money. We doubled the capacity of our cage and decreased the overall operational cost by 2. So money is the main driver, and whenever money is driving something, usually industry is following. So that was the first element. And the second one, we want to anticipate the fact that in maybe 2-3 years from now, there may be hardware that won't be available in air cooling. The GPUs are reaching more than, the last that has been installed in our on-premises data centers are 100 kilowatts each, I think. So it doesn't make sense to cool these kind of systems by air. And I believe that the hardware is beginning to be very dense. And being dense, we won't have any choice than moving to another cooling system. And I believe that DLC is the easiest to deploy. We have also looked at immersion cooling, but it's much more complex in terms of operations, in terms of... so we decided to move to DLC because we believe it's the easiest way to shift to.
Yeah, I had one. Paul Arman from AMD. I had one question, one comment. As you look forward, what rack size are you looking at? We're seeing the hyperscales going to 21-inch or wider. That 19-inch is going to be kind of challenging, especially with the serial CPU layouts. Are you looking at 21-inch form factors going forward? I know it's harder for colos, but that was the question.
Today, we don't really have a constraint on the rack sizes. We ask for our data center service supplier to tell us what are their constraints, and we take the easiest for them. We are going to deploy in PA10 some OCP-based DLC racks, potentially, which means that that we are open to all standards, as long as the data center service supplier is able to host them. We can take whatever we want.
Yeah, and the comment I was going to say is between OCP and Astra, we are trying to tackle specs. So like OK disconnector is one we just closed on. Yeah. Water temperature. So I think there's a pretty large effort with NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, other people. But the pace of liquid cooling going from HPC to be cottage to like thousands of CDUs per month is kind of caught us off basis a little bit. But I think there is pretty much consensus to drive standardization. It'll just take some time.
Yep.
Hi, Thomas from data center team Criteo. Do you own your end of row CDUs? And another question: do you think to move to different server design, for example, with front cabling to separate manifold piping from the power and network cabling?
Okay, so we have the two different cases because we've discovered for DLC for the last few years. So in Nanterre, we don't own the CDUs. In Sweden, we don't own the CDUs. In Norway, we do own the CDUs. And in Paris, we will own the CDUs. So we are progressively shifting to an owned system for the secondary loop, because the data center services supplier are putting the CDU in front of our CDUs to have this demarcation line, which was not the case at the beginning. They agreed to plug it directly on their primary circuit. It's not the case anymore. That's the reason why we are buying the CDUs now. And second question was, sorry?
The server design regarding the cabling.
Yes. It actually depends on the server you pick. In Norway, we do have everything from the back of the server, but you saw there are many pipes and wires and cables, so it's not really convenient if you are doing that for inconsistent infrastructure. It can become quite complex. So that's also the reason why OCP is becoming interesting, because in terms of DLC, you just rack the server, it's automatically plugged to power and cooling, and everything is done from the front side. So I expect this to be a more convenient design for the future.
Thank you.
And we reached the 40 minutes.
Yeah. I had a question regarding your ratio for opening new data centers at 65K cores. That seems a bit low, especially with the densifications going forward. And basically, you're going to have 65K cores in like 2 racks in a year. So how it's going to evolve?
So the 65K cores was the biggest sites we have 5 years ago in London. And as we wanted to deploy a resiliency, we wanted to have similar sites. We didn't want to lose more than 65,000 cores. That's the reason why of the 65. As soon as we reach 10 HPC sites, we'll increase the size of the sites, relying on an in situ refresh. We'll stay in the same power envelope and putting more cores in it, and we'll reach as we want. But you're absolutely right. We can replace 7 years old HPC infrastructure. Should be 1,400 servers by 2 racks today in Paris.
One last question.
Yeah, so just one element for the monitoring and stuff like that. When we had the issue, we relied only on IPMI tool, IPMI query to every 5 seconds have the update on the thermal and see which server were overheating, especially when we have a mix of Linux, Windows, and many other elements. But another question maybe for the hardware. So you say that the connectors for the hardware, they are Stobli connectors.
Yes.
Is it standard on the whole industry, or is it different connectors?
It seems to be standard, except for fully integrated racks, such as Cray, HPE Cray. They do have they have their own connectors, but otherwise, whenever you buy a liquid cool server, 99% of the time it's Stobli connectors. And otherwise, you can change the rack manifolds so that they fit to the connectors. And as I said, that's also one of the reasons why we do prefer to have the same manufacturer in the same rack. And we don't mix different manufacturers.
Yeah, quickly.
Yeah, so for now, there are no standards yet, but there are working groups working on that from OCP, from the OCP community. But even from the OCP, each manufacturer came with its own recommendations. So at OCP, there are 3 form factors fighting, and NVIDIA chose a 4th one. So it will take time, but yeah, that's the goal for everybody.
Sorry, just to follow up, I'm one of the persons leading the UKD spec at OCP. There is a V2 that resolves a lot of issues. CPC, Parker, Stoply, Danfoss, AMD, NVIDIA are all working on that. So I think that'll helpful kind of to close that. That'll be released before the regional summit in Dublin.